right,
we
so we'll
have
get
to
started.
upstairs. He takes
Let's
it all
start.
back and
All right.
everything.
And what's the first one?
This meeting is just about to be live. Recording in progress. So we have 4 members present, so we'll go through the intros. Ruthie is due to be here because we do have 1 member that has to recuse himself, so we'll have a quorum at that point, but we'll get started with the intros and then kick this meeting off. So thanks for being with us.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric. So this is the July 5th, 2023 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals and Site Design. Present are Jeff Webb, Kelvin Yuji, Paula Summers, myself, Joel Eagers. Present from the planning staff is Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendations. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals and Site Design has the authority to do 3 things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions to fact-finding function of the board. And 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54(9)24 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. B, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good. The character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So with that, I guess our first item is going to be A1, it should just be review of the minutes from June 7th. And anybody has any questions, or if everybody is good with the minutes, we'll take a motion for approval.
Make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
For approval by Jeff, seconded by Paul, and all in favor?
I in favor.
I in favor. Any opposed? It's approved 4-0.
I wasn't present, so I didn't know.
3-0.
3-0. So our next item is going to be item B1. B1 is 523 Spring Hollow Drive. It's the Canaway Peninsula. The TMS number is 26715040048. It is zone PUD. Request a variance for section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Eric.
Okay, this is the application submitted on behalf of BZA Homes, Mr. Tom Hollington. As stated, the lot is within a neighborhood that is developed under PUD guidelines, PUD guidelines. This is an aerial after the roads were constructed, ponds. So just off the screen left is the marshes of the Cooper River. So it's on the west or north side of Cummins Ferry Road. This is just a recent Google screenshot of the house under construction, and note the tree in question is behind it. So there's a little history with this neighborhood, and these 3 grand trees existed, obviously, when it was a forested situation. The PUD allowed the development and the subdivision, obviously, of the neighborhood. There was 3 grand trees kind of lined up in a just offset row here, and due to the grading, this site has a lot of topography, almost 25 foot of relief from the high point down to the river. So as they developed and designed the neighborhood, they kind of terraced, if you will, the lots and then the street and what have you. And these lots are on the very lower end of the neighborhood against that pond and the marsh. And it was proposed and shown to have retaining walls, partial retaining walls constructed. And you can see the approval was in March of 2022, March 21st, as shown with these partial walls. But I had been on site previous, and I'll get into that in just a minute. So Newkirk was brought in after many discussions about the progress of the construction and the status of the tree. So this is Mac's report. I just note that the tree that was to be due left of the house actually ended up dead. So it was previously approved at staff level. So these are city photos. I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of this discussion started over the winter months. Obviously, the live oak, retains its leaves through those months, but they do lose leaves and they push new growth in the spring. And it's weak looking, it's thin, but I was surprised at the coverage of foliage. A few tips that are totally devoid of leaf tissue. So this is a little bit of the history. I had placed a stop work order on this property. I can't get out to Canehoy every day. If you want to just make a note there.
Ruthie joined the meeting.
Ruthie, you haven't missed a whole lot, so just keep your ears peeled. But anyway, again, we look at tree protection barricades prior to land clearing and road construction, and then it's just impossible to do weekly inspections. But we try and get out there and we put our eyes on things. But anyway, at some point I put a stop work order because the developer was kind of ignoring the rain bombs that we would have, silt running off the grades and what have you. So, but anyway, again, zoning approved it in March of 21. Here we are, June of 23, and that email, I visited the site on March 11th, and I state that must pull the soil back and build a retaining wall as shown. I think it should be the retaining wall may be emitted on the tree on lot 109 just because of the way the grades worked out there, and that house was further along. Proceed with grading the pond side of the tree protection in order to eliminate standing water, and work with should be supervised by a certified arborist. With the idea that at that point I felt the tree could be, salvaged and if you did some soil amendments and what have you. So anyway, there are my notes. These documents were not in the images sent to y'all, but they delivered these here and I incorporated them. But note, this is August 6th, same tree, looking a little thin, but note the stakes that are in front of it. That was the stake out that I asked for the face of the wall to be staked out for the retaining wall to be built before they brought in the fill for the lot. That didn't occur, so the grading behind the tree, so there was some standing water and it kind of got hold the depression started to hold water and cattails and whatnot started to move in. August 6, 2021, March 6 of 23, 6 of 23. Again, no wall, connection not the best. No attempt to put silt fence maybe around it to help not have the silt wash over the roof plate. Grading occurring to get positive drainage away from the tree. Silt wash, root collar. So today, they did not build a wall. They did do some grading. They put like a little berm to deflect the water left and right of the tree as it runs away from the home. And I'll let the applicant discuss what they did as far as any soil amendments or air spading. So staff recommends denial and just continue to implement acceptable cultural practices to the tree and monitor.
All right, Eric, thank you. Applicant's present.
Almost evaluating this tree, give you some background on myself. I have a bachelor of forestry, a master's in forestry, PhD in forestry. Licensed forester in the state of South Carolina and Georgia. On the side of the American Forest Trail certified forester, ISA certified arborist, and ISA tree risk assessor. I evaluated this tree along with there were a total of 5 trees I evaluated in 2021. As Eric stated, this site has a lot of topography for low country, and these trees sit at the bottom of the hill. Trees were cleared above it. You lost all that evapotranspiration. There's a retaining pond at the bottom with a berm. Just caused the soil here to be saturated, and these trees are drowning. In August of 21 to remove 3 trees. Those were granted by staff because, again, they were sitting in saturated soil. The 2 trees, the one we're talking about today and the one in the immediate northeast of the site, we decided we'd try to fertilize, mulch those trees, do what we could to augment to see if we could get those trees to come back, increase in vigor. Those treatments were not successful. As Eric said, there was a little bit of silt wash that had occurred on the site. But at the deepest point, it's less than 1.5 inches, and it's over existing wash. That has been removed, placed on site to prevent any further silt wash into the area. That's the issue of saturated soils. This site is, if you look at some of those photos Eric showed, soil staining. So what's happened is, from a hydrological standpoint, the water is coming down that hill. If you think about a hydrological gradient, it drops down and it comes down to some point of part of the hill comes out. You've made this retaining storm water pond below it. So what's happened is you've got an area now that's all saturated soil conditions. There's no place for water to go. And this tree is responding as typical live oak. It's drowning, it's dying a very slow death. But it is, because it is dying and you're having branches, it is a danger to the community, to potential targets walking on the path by the stormwater pond. It's also a danger to the surrounding houses and the residents. So we would ask that the tree be removed. I don't think there's anything we could do from a silvicultural standpoint to improve the livelihood of this tree. So we ask that that be considered in tree removal.
All right. We'll hear from anybody else that's in favor, then we'll get questions at one time. So if there's anybody else present that's in favor or that wants to speak to the application and the denial.
Excuse
My name is Tom Wallington. I'm the applicant, Vice President of Land Development for BZA, and as Mac and Eric have stated, we've done a lot to try to help this tree. Just one other element, the plan that called for the retaining wall, because of the design of these houses had such a massive foundation because of where they are relative to the storm surge, we really had a lot more exposed foundation on the back half of the property than we'd originally thought. So the retaining wall is in essence foundation of the house, and you can see in some of the pictures because the grade doesn't come right out at that lowest elevation floor. But we agree with Mac that we've tried to do it. We've invested in a lot of the fertilization and reclamation work for it. Just not sure the trees are going to make it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else present that wants to speak about this application? Close the application to the public, board for discussion.
Anyone opposed?
What's that?
Is there anyone opposed?
Is there anybody that's opposed? So the question I have is, were they required to put tree protection fencing up, and that didn't happen either, or
It did,
they did? They
It
put
did.
the tree protection fencing up.
right. And so, I can't remember when the neighborhood kicked off. How many years back? What year did you all?
Prior to me, I'd be guessing to give you a date.
Yeah,
2017.
yeah. A few years back. So yes, at that point, we go in and we do our inspection. I've been at this for 25 years, but you live and learn, right? Interior trees now, we have what we call a non-trench tree protection barricade detail. And it's very specific to where you don't trench, you put in your tree protection at the required distance, but you don't trench outside of it, but you put silt fence at the base of that. You use sod staples to put the flap of the silt fence down, and then you kind of bury it by putting soil on it. So in this case, back then, I would have hoped that I would have required that detail so that when you do have the rain bombs and you have a lot of grading and exposed soil, that it kind of doesn't get into the protective zone. But I think just over time, like I said, I had put a stop work order on this. I can't remember the exact date, but it was just a routine inspection, and the barricade was kind of beat up, and so a little bit of history there, but and tell that it falls quite a bit from the street. And but what my little bit of a disappointment with the builder is that in 21, I tried to find those emails that we asked that the face of the wall be staked out, that we knew you were going to, I think they were asking, that we're starting to fill this lot, bring it up, so we could have a meeting out there where it wouldn't get into the root system of the tree, and the stakes were there, and time passes and they didn't build it, go up and fill in.
Sure, so I understand that the back of the house is acting as the retaining wall. You can see it in the picture. The question is, if they put a wall in as requested, would it have made a difference?
Well, I think it would have stopped the silt from getting in through the washouts, and I can't speak to what the slope is from the back of the house to the top of that wall.
So then, I guess my second question is, maybe it could be to Mac as well, but so I think Mac alluded to there's because of saturation bottom of the hill, there's really nothing that can be done to revive the tree. So if we deny the request to remove it, we just wait till eventually it's an F-grade tree and it's removed.
There might have been some discussion. You can do not necessarily vertical mulching, but you can do vertical drills and put sand in there and put a wick to try and dry up soil and what have you. I don't know if that was discussed or thought about, but main goal when we sent that email out here was to move the soil back, build the retaining wall. So at that point on that on-site meeting, there was it was evident that there was silt wash. And, certified arborists, they can suggest that you use air spade and you blast that soil away, you kind of amend the soils and what have you.
Speak to that, like what is like coring and sand and wicks? I mean, are there things that can be done? Because I feel like there's maybe a combination of things, but one is certainly neglect on the builders and as to why the tree is the way the tree is. That's how I feel.
Eric, can I ask you to go back through?
Your photos?
Yeah, please. So this is August 21. This is before the email. I went out and evaluated this tree. You see here, you can see the pond. You see black willows. If you go to the next slide, Eric, you've got black willow, which is an aquatic tree species. You've got cattails growing here. This is prior to any construction on this lot. So what you've already created is because the placement of the storm water pond below and the grade site. So it comes downhill, and then you come to the storm water pond. So you've made this swale. So all 5 of these grand live oaks sit in this area. They're drowning because of that. Now, slide area. Even on the backside, you can see this is the berm creating the stormwater pond. So this is a swale below before you get that pond. Water coming uphill, coming down. It's just sitting in here. And these soils are totally saturated. And you can see pinning wart, again, the black willow, the cattails. We go to the next slide. There's a tree. Now, this was on August 21 when I went out the first time. We fertilized the tree, we mulched all the existing vegetation, put the mulch around inside the tree barricade, so we protected that area, the root zone underneath that. The tree has not responded. And what's happening is because of the hydrate nature of the soils, the tree is just sitting in water. While air spading is a technique, air spading is typically used for compaction. It's not used for drainage. Wicking would work if there was a place for the water to go, but when you already have an elevated water table, there's nowhere that's sitting in saturated water. Go to the next slide, Eric. One more. So the tree would be in this position. This is looking back behind the tree, going back towards the pond. You see this dark staining here? That's soil saturation. You'll look on the silt fence, you'll see where water is just sitting in that area. And then beyond the site, even back on the walking trail, you see that soil staining. So you see the amount of hydrological flows that are coming through that area. The area here in trees is a protected wetland. And so there's no way we can move the water out of this site. And this tree, like I said, is just sitting in water and it's drowning. And I want to do everything I can to save this tree, but there's nothing that, as a certified arborist, that I can do. And even in my forestry background, I can think of is going to change the hydrology on the site. Unfortunately, the creation of that stormwater pond has changed the hydrology on that site, and that's why you see these trees decline over time. And they're going to continue to decline. Eric's right, it may sit there for a while, but we're going to be back here 2 years from now saying now the tree is dead. It's unfortunate, but that's where it is. And I don't think as an arborist there's anything I can do or recommend that's going to change that hydrology. And then if you look at the other site, the other photo there, next photo, while there was silt washing on this site after the house was constructed, silt wash was on top of the existing mulch. And so where you have to watch the silt wash is compaction, root compaction. But because you have a layer of mulch already in there, any silt that was on there, if it was tremendous amount of silt, yeah, you could have compaction. But you've got less than 1.5 inches of silt wash on it, and it's sandy fill. So it's an angular soil, and it's on top of that, so you're not gonna get that compaction. That's been pulled back off of that site. So, like I said, silt wash it is a problem, but it's not the reason the tree is fine. The tree is fine because it's dying.
City of Water.
Understand the hydrology and the groundwater effects of that, Mac, but and I know you weren't involved in the design, but was the design for that pond to have that berm so there's not positive drainage through there? I mean, the pond created a bowl, right? And why couldn't there be a connection to drain that bowl?
I'm assuming everything is piped into stormwater drainages in the pond, in the neighborhood, so all that's going further in the pond. And actually, where this tree sits, it's actually, as you look at the elevation of the pond, to me, it looks like the
Close to water
level of the tree
level.
are about at the same height. Like I said, it's just unfortunate that, you know, where these trees, and when you take off all that evapotranspiration that's uphill from it, and you've got this berm below it, it's, you know, unfortunately, it's a perfect storm.
But based upon what you seen, the berm was the design feature of the pond?
The berm is part.
It was not
part of
graded
the
incorrectly.
pond.
Eric, one question on the tree that was approved on the side. What was that?
That was dead.
Okay.
And it was, again, it was this tree, and there were 2 others here, same condition, all flooding. We made a decision with these 2 trees to try to do whatever we could to try to save them. That's why we went in, mulched all the existing vegetation around the tree, put mulch in, and did ground injected fertilization to try to increase the vigor of these trees, and they haven't responded to continue.
So, are y'all are not asking for that 30-inch oak, right?
No,
No, that's gone.
That's already gone.
Yeah, that was permanent statute.
and that's higher up.
No. I'm
The one
talking
in the
top
back
right.
corner, top corner.
No, that one's on the neighboring property, and it's not the best defense right now, but the backyard, that house must have sold because there's a pool under construction to right of that tree, about where the retaining wall is. Looks like it's going to be a stem wall type of pool, but they did have some tree protection.
And it looks like it's gone.
It's a relatively same condition as this one. The foliage is weak looking. Well, you can kind of see through in the back.
The one behind the fence.
Yep.
When you approved that other tree to be removed, what was the replacement requirement?
1 2.5 inch tree is what the ordinance requires when it's done at staff level.
This is a 31-inch tree, it's a live oak, right?
Category 1, so it would be 100% of the DBH inches lost if it were to be approved or recommended to be approved.
It's at 2.5 inches per tree, 12.5
Yeah, the minimum would be a 2.5 inch tree.
trees. So, it's tough because I understand what Mac is saying. Deep inside, you're just like, well, let's give it a shot. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, if we give it a shot, it dies. It's 1 tree. We give approval, maybe 1 inch per inch replacement, there'd actually be some real mitigation.
But the what's been created there with the saturated soils, could you plant new trees with that saturation, or would they need to go to a different location? Do you know, Jeff?
So
I would assume a different location.
if you look at the stakes by that black fence, the property line comes across. So that's an HOA area behind the lot. They would have to get permission from an HOA to plant, I mean, you could plant fall cypress in saturated soils and some other species that like
And
wet.
that's what we have planned for the mitigation of the other trees, fall cypress.
And we could put one,
The ball cypress now. I guess the needs only occur when the tree's looking for water.
Actually,
Funny
nobody
little-
actually knows the function.
Okay.
It's been studied and debated. Very nice.
Sorry.
But yes, cypress trees do have needs.
Does that ruin a yard?
It can.
Okay.
I think it'd be preferable to put something back on that lot,
Oh, absolutely.
in that area. I think it'd be done.
Well, if that were the case, the tree would come out, you would grade the backyard and you'd have imported decent loamy soil, hopefully.
Yeah, you could fill up to the, wherever the wetland is, right?
To
Basically,
the
yeah.
property line, I guess they would grade it to your property line, not beyond, without HOA approval.
And then you could potentially put a drier species in there.
I would say if we're gonna consider that, the replacement planting requirement should be increased. Because there was,
Size or number.
Lumber
Both.
trees get established quicker than.
Yeah, they
larger.
would kind
Right.
of stop going on that.
but it doesn't have to all be, maybe in the HOA area, there's some other location. So instead of inch for inch, maybe it's 60 inches instead of 30. I mean, they were just clear, they didn't develop the site as it was meant to be developed.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like we went against his recommendation, gave approval. Just do the 1 inch replacement. We've got to set an amount on site when it's 2 or 3 trees on site, and the rest is boundary street.
This property is not sold. The buyer for this, it's under contract. Buyer's requesting that the tree come out.
They would prefer to go out, but they're under contract as well. It's their concern. They like Max in.
Are there plans to put a pool in there if the tree goes away?
Not
Put a
the
tree,
builder.
put a tree in the middle. I like the idea about we can specify on-site trees. This doesn't, does the landscape plan go back through,
He won't get his CO, I don't think the
Can
house
make
has
it a
been
condition.
CO'd until we get a plan and the trees are planted and inspected.
You're integrating tree
but
plan.
would y'all have preliminary review or before?
We'll approve the species in the plan, yeah.
Okay.
And then we're gonna work with them on the grading of the lot. Make sure that we don't have to just put all the cycles back
We could condition that. All right. Well, I'm gonna start one.
there. Let me ask, are there any other questions?
Feel free to amend this motion, but I'm gonna make a motion for approval, not with staff recommendations, but for mitigation as required, which is 1-for-1 replacement, on the condition that at least 3 of those 2.5-inch caliber trees are planted on site. The rest can go in HOA or to the tree bank. landscape plan approved by staff. And, so, yeah, I got you. And that the site shall be graded so that these new trees are upland of these hydric soils as per allowed due to property and wetland requirements.
All right, so I think that was great. Eric, if you could just maybe verify what that 1-for-1 replacement is.
31 inches.
31 inches of tree. 2.5 inches of tree. I think that's 12.5.
Yep.
Do the math.
Yep.
So it'd be 13 trees required then.
You do, what's the
Round it up.
13 total trees.
So we either
Three of
HOA,
those on site.
with HOA approval and HOA lots and or the equivalent to the contribution to the street tree program,
Yes, and what is the dollar amount for the street tree?
$295.
Okay. So we need to restate the motion?
So I got it as the board makes a motion to approve the removal of 1 grand tree with the condition to plant 31 total caliper inches in the form of 3 2.5-inch trees on the lot with an approved species and landscape plan and associated with a lot grading plan that meets engineering requirements. The residual inches can be made up in the form of planting trees on HOA or a contribution to the city's street tree program.
It's not just like, any discussion on the motion, or is there a second to the motion? All right, we'll just go to vote. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye in favor.
In favor. Any opposed?
And I.
Okay, so the motion is approved 3-2.
So Kelvin was a nay and Paula was a nay.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is item B2, and that is 158 Spring Street, Cannon Borough, Elliott Borough. TMS number 46011020086 and 088, zone DR2F and LB. Request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 12 protected trees.
So to start, that variance request will be amended to 4, and I'll explain why it was submitted. This is the application for 158 Spring, property owner being CKC Properties, Joseph O. Callahan. This is their write-up, the SGA write-up on the request. And the reason it's modified to 4 is that the survey that's submitted says that the parcel is 0.44 acres. So 0.44 acres requires 6.6 trees. We round up. So 7 trees would be the goal to maintain on this site. And as I discussed, they'll be preserving 3. So this is the LB parcel. It's a very narrow parcel of land. It acts as an access easement to this landlocked parcel above that, zone DR2F. 158 Spring is with the red balloon on it, and then of course you see this vacant parcel in the back, partially vacant. The trees on the northern side are primarily volunteer, and we'll get into that discussion in just a second. So here's the survey. So you got 0.44 acre, that's the larger yellow, and then the access, of course. And you got this massive 71-inch live oak next to an old almost like pole barn type structure. That's what that long linear rectangular building is. It's open on one side and the tree is literally growing against its facade on the north. And then you have another oak on the south side. Then over time, obviously the open side, there was activity here. This was a active site, and you'll be surprised what's on it. But when that activity ceased, trees take over vacant land and they grow and they become the size to be protected under our ordinance. So there's the massive oak, grade A, there's 2B grade oaks, and a spattering of C, even though they're protected trees. The arborists, Bartlett tree experts gave them C's and D's. Zone DRF, it's entitled to do multifamily. This, we've had some sketch plan Wednesday discussions about this. We've seen numerous ideas. It really hasn't kicked off formally into Tier C outright, and it's under BAR jurisdiction. So I'll voice some concerns about what we see as far as the actual improvements here, but that's the direction they're going in. So basically, you'll have access off of Spring up through that narrow access, some surface parking, and then residential units to the east. This is a little blow up. I know when it goes on images, I think you all have a little trouble sometimes. It gets blurry. This is the chart. Again, Bartlett Tree Experts is the consulting arborist. Are a few palms, laurel oaks, core canopy, response growth, and we'll get into some photos here. 3 trees to be preserved. Cameron Rickett with talks about the 2 trees in the access, which were staff approved. One was a chinaberry, very invasive tree. We want to get rid of chinaberries. The other was a pecan tree that had significant pockets of decay in it. And then he gets into his program here, order of tree preservation. And then the actual trees. So palms, I'll discuss in a minute. They went in, the tree was engulfed in vines because it had gone vacant and no care. So they de-vined the live oak, pruned out all the dead wood. You can see that tree 9, 71-inch grade A. The other trees, oak tree 10. I have a really fascinating photo of that. But, again, vine infested, competing with one another. See some vines just wrapping the trees on tree 14. This was just a no man's land, basically. The applicant went in and cleaned it up by hand. After several meetings, you can see all the vines just hanging in the trees. That's a classic right there.
Wow.
That's my favorite. Found on the peninsula in the city of Charleston. It's a tow truck. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 20. So, today I would be able to approve down to 7 trees, but I asked Colin not to remove any of the trees, come up with your plan, get a better understanding of what's going on. So he heeded that suggestion. So he could go out and cut, there's 12 or so, you could cut 5 of them down without a permit to maintain 7 protected trees per acre. But so 4 to come out, that's 5 inches per tree. Palm trees are easily transplanted. I know they're ugly and they have the old, booted, if you will, the old fronds, but that can be cleaned up. But if they don't survive the transplant, you just plant 2 new palms. So we'll get up to, additional. Must use 4-foot chain link fence as the tree protection for the 71-inch. Must continue to have Bartlett Tree Expert manage the trees pre, during, and post-construction. Must work with staff, the arborist, and the architect to reduce the encroachments into the TBZs of the trees to be preserved. If a consensus is not reached with staff, a variance to allow an encroachment will be required. So And then must-use non-hard pervious surface for the parking detail to be reviewed and approved by the project arborist. So I asked them, they're very early with VAR discussions. I did my little sketch. I didn't want to present it to get it locked in, but I feel on the northwest corner of the building where it touches the grade A, they could possibly notch the building and still have that one surface parking lot come out from underneath the garage type parking. I don't know if that turnaround is necessary. They can kind of modify, make up a parking space elsewhere, lose that space, and then obviously today, if you were to have visited the site at the point of the large B grade tree, it's all gravel there now. Basically, they cleared out some brush underneath that tree south of the shed, but it's kind of acting as a parking lot for the units that are on Spring Street today. That building to the west is kind of new construction. Again, it was on a neighboring property and it doesn't seem to have harmed the trees in that regard. There was newer construction in the units that are on, right on the Spring Street frontage. But anyway, so they're willing to work with me. I'm willing to work with them through VAR and other discussions. But so that's our recommendation.
Eric, thank you. The applicant's present.
My name is Joseph O'Callaghan. I'm a landscape architect at SGA and LD Design. With me is Bill Eubanks, landscape architect at SGA and LD Design. Colin Colbert, who's with CKC Properties, the owners of the parcel. We had originally requested removal of 12 protected trees. That is now 4, so maybe Eric can correct me if any of my numbers are incorrect. But our post-development summary would be 3 trees remaining, which brings us to 6.25 trees per acre. And we need to maintain 7 for the city. So that's why we are requesting this variance. For the removal, I've already said, these are predominantly laurel oaks. Our arborist has graded these as C and D. You can see we have our arborist report here that states that they all have a poor canopy balance and response growth. We have presence of 2 large grand trees. One is a 71-inch live oak, which we believe is one of the largest trees on the peninsula. It is a grade A tree, according to our arborist. And we believe that this is an extraordinary and exceptional circumstance, given the size of the tree, that it does not pertain to other lots in the area. In addition, we have the 57-inch live oak, which we also plan to preserve. We already have a treatment plan from our arborist. You can see that in the submittal package, how he plans to preserve the health of the trees through construction. The presence of these 2 trees combined with the live oak cluster, we feel would unreasonably restrict utilization of the lot. The most logical building area is the northeastern flat portion of the lot, which gives us maximum clearance to the live oaks on the western side. So I'm not going to say much more. We agree with staff recommendations, and like Eric said, we're willing to work with staff moving forward on this. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just say that the development is
Colin, introduce yourself.
My name is Colin Colbert, CKC Properties. The development's called Grand Oak Court, so we have every intention of preserving the great Grand Oak that's on the back of the site, and are looking forward to working there to get the plans to where it feels comfortable with.
Thank you. Anybody else present that wants to speak in favor of the application? Anybody present that is opposed? Close this application to the public and open to the board for discussion. I don't see any issues. Done a nice job working with Eric already, so.
It's a good use of the property.
As long as there's good uplighting, I'm in favor.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Any questions about the conditions?
I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations.
All right, so there's a motion for approval by Paula. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Paula. Discussion on that. We'll just go to a vote. All in favor, aye in favor.
Aye in favor.
In favor. Any opposed? That motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Mr. Recusal, does that mean I get your snack?
I'm glad you came out. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. You would just state that for the record.
Oh, yes, for the record, Jeff Webb is leaving the meeting and for the next two items.
Yeah, me too.
So our next item is going to be item B3, and it is 74 President Street, Medical District, TMS number 46015010043, Zone LB, requested variance from section 54 through 27 to allow the removal of one protected tree.
So just to begin, the item 3 and 4 are on the same parcel of land at the medical university. It's just that there's two different teams working on two different proposed additional academic buildings. So we had to split it up in that regard. So this one here fronts on President Street. We'll take a President Street address. ADC Engineering is the applicant. Jeff just left. There. And again, this is, here's the track. You wouldn't realize that this parcel is this size and this shape, but it is. And I feel that in the medical district, this a very unusual condition is to have that much open space devoid of buildings when you're an institution of this size and growing, and the caliber of the education and the hospital facilities. You would think by now it would be much like any other larger city with a medical district. But so they've been utilizing the open space in a very wise manner, and it will be kind of a sad day when that goes by, but I think there's plans to relocate most of it. But anyway, you can see the spattering in trees. The two most recent three buildings, actually, the dental building northeast a few years back, and then the drug discovery and the what's the other one? Bioengineering building. This was a surface parking lot at one time, so it's amazing how the evolution of the university is taken. Anyway, so you've got a survey here of trees, and you have this one is this is the health professionals building. So this again fronts on President, and you see the one tree. It's behind a historic or a brick wall today, and they're really hemmed in by the drug discovery and the bioengineering and the future buildings to the north and east. But also the fact that there's some heavy equipment, existing utility above grade boxes. You see those long linear boxes behind the wall. That would be very expensive to relocate. So the building actually had to go through a variance process to kind of be set back off of President Street, Height District. Here's their count. Obviously, the MUSC is known to be an arboretum, so they have a good database of all the trees. And I think this site requires at 15 acres or so, 220 some odd trees, and they only have 180 throughout the campus, but they They maintain those trees in a high quality manner and so on and so forth. There's the tree. You can see the utility boxes. It's a live oak just behind the wall, but they need to bring utilities in from President. This is just another view of the activity garden and exercise fitness lawn that will be replaced with the building. Staff recommends approval with the condition that plant 5 caliber inches on the campus. Must provide landscape plan for TRC review and approval.
All right, thank you, Eric. Applicant present. Thank you, Eric.
Excuse me, Brian Stowe with ADC Engineering. Yeah, another reason for that tree, just wanted to add, is that we need to move that existing wall in order to maintain convenient access to those transformers. So if you kind of look on the plan, you can see that that wall is actually moving closer to President Street. So anyone wants access for a truck to get through there. We're not providing a driving surface, they would need to put something down. So that's another reason for the tree. You know, we're just gonna be chopping roots everywhere around it for all these utilities as well as removing the wall and taking the wall back.
Anybody else present that would like to speak in favor of the application? Anybody present that is opposed that would like to be heard? With this application, the public will be open to the board for discussion or questions. It's pretty cut and dry.
I agree.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Or second, any discussion on the motion? Say aye in favor. Aye in favor. Any opposed? That motion is approved 4-0. So our final item on the agenda is going to be item B4. It is 35 B Street, Medical District, TMS 46015010043, Zone LB. Requested variance from section 54.327 to allow the relocation of 3 protected trees and 2 grand trees. Requested variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree, and requested variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 6 protected trees.
And this is MUSC's campus, but under a different design team, Certain being the applicant here. Their letter addresses the hardship. Same parcel, same aerial. So the Vince Mosley building will be demolished and the urban farm will be relocated or discontinued. There's a shot from the street looking in. So this one is the College of Medicine, a fairly large building compared to the health professions, but nonetheless, they're headed in with space, and of course, academic institution has to provide space for students and other operations. So this one's going to parallel B and then do a little 90-degree turn south and really enhance that north-south corridor that exists between B and the Jonathan Lucas. So here's your presentation made by the architectural team. Again, the same amount of protected trees. So this one was modified from what you saw with the images because I asked that it be modified because I believe palms, there's always a space for a palm somewhere, right? So all your blue dots are palm trees, they can be relocated. If they don't make the transplant, the university just plants new palms based on the approved landscape plan. The light blue trees are the transplants. So fairly large trees in the center. You got one magnolia south, you got a 25-inch oak, a 23, a 28, and then a 17-inch oak. And if you have a good memory, it was probably within 12 months, we had a presentation from Urban Forestry for potential tree location over on Clements Ferry Road. The university has hired the same group, and working with Andrew Hargett, the campus arborist, they've come up with a plan. The red trees are holly trees that just exist around the older building and pond. And then, of course, the 26-inch live oak that's behind the wall. We'll look at that one. So this is the plan. I think the building's connected overhead. That's why it shows all pink. But you'll have a little bit of a east-west corridor. And building in a nice little space. And then the green dots with the dark circle are the locations of where these trees will be moved. So not a large move, but significant in the fact that they're large trees. So this is a letter to Robin Smith, the grounds manager, from Andrew Hargett, the campus arborist. He describes the 4 trees here. So this is the tree number 4. 2 in the urban farm. Tree number 4 again with previous damage, but it's walled off. Trees responding to that wound. Tree 1, the live oak activity field and fitness area, pretty much out in the open. Tried to go back, and I can't remember if the surface parking lot that existed there prior to the drug discovery extended all the way up there, or this was kind of an area of lawn, but that tree has a very nice crown. This is the tree that's in question for removal. You can see it's Dominion Energy does its 5-year rotation on it. It's got a lean, it's one-sided. The complications of getting a decent root ball with that wall. There's the magnolia. These are my shots because anticipating a successful vote here tonight, they've already engaged urban forestry, and they started to air spade and root prune and then drip irrigate, and just to be sure these trees don't blow over in a freak summer storm. They got them tied down, but they're prepping already. So this is the 26-inch oak by the fitness park, 28-inch in the urban farm area. This is the one that has that cavity that's healing, the 23-inch just under grand status, and then the 17-inch by the wall, and it's just that far off the wall, and that wall comes down with the building so they can get a root ball. 26-inch live oak to be removed. Urban Forestry Works, this is their protocol, as you may recall. Presentation, but I'll just go through this. Be reminded that they have that local South Carolina farm that results of that other meeting. They're going to be bringing a tree in from that farm. This is the way they do it. Large tree transplanting system, trademark, box. Step 2. Step 3. These will be just basically skidded across to their new locations on the campus. Step 4. Step 5. large part of the discussion last time when they were here to present to you all was post transplant protocols. So with campus arborist and them on site and be very visible. So staff recommends approval with the condition to relocate the 12 palms on campus, plant new ones if they don't survive. Must plant 35 caliber inches of canopy trees on campus. Be reminded that this is an arboretum and they won't have trouble doing that, I don't think. That's for the protected trees. Must plant 26 caliber inches on campus for the grand tree. That's a 1-for-1. And then if the relocated transplanted trees do not survive within a 5-year period, MUSC will commit to planting the number of trees lost with a 10-inch live oak from the SC Urban Forestry, or I guess it should be Urban Forestry Farm. A letter is to be submitted agreeing to this commitment. So I feel pretty confident. I feel good about it, but just in case. And then must implement the transplant tree care, the transplant care protocols as recommended, and to be included on the TRC plans, and must have a landscape plan for TRC review approval.
All right, Eric, thank you. The applicant present, and would you like to be heard?
Yeah, my name is Erin Stevens. I'm a landscape architect working on the project. I think Eric covered it pretty well, but we are here. We have some other members from the design team and MUSC to answer any questions y'all might have. We understand that this project is going to displace a really significant green space downtown, and we're just excited that we'll be able to hopefully save some of these trees and use them with the new configuration of buildings. But it's unfortunate that we do have to remove the one grand tree. I think Eric covered the condition of the tree pretty well, but one other thing to point out is that it does interfere with providing ADA access because these two buildings are elevated and they're connected by an elevated plaza, and so we're doing a pretty complicated grading plan to try to provide ample access to all building entrances, and so having it that close to the building and the historic brick wall that we're also trying to preserve makes it a really challenging location. Thank you, and let us know if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else present that would like to be heard in favor of the application? Anybody present? Public, if you open to the board, discussion or questions.
Yeah, I like that the trees are going back on property. Hopefully they'll make it, and it's great. They're beautiful trees.
It's a significant expense as well. So
Redacted, how can you tell?
All right, if there's no questions of the applicant, is there a motion?
Motion to draft recommendation.
All right, so motion by Calvin. Second.
I'll second.
And second, is there any discussion on the motion? Now we're going to vote. I in favor?
I'm in favor.
In favor, any opposed? Motion is approved as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that
And
concludes the meeting.
That's the meeting. Have a great day. Get back out there and come. Just kind of walk.
what's the penalty if a developer just cuts down a tree? It's protected.
Right.
I think it's